What if I told you that an 80-year-old rock legend just walked onto a Boston stage and played like a man who had waited his entire life for this exact moment? That's exactly what happened when John Fogerty lit up the MGM Music Hall at Fenway on November 14th, delivering a night that fans are already calling one of the most emotional shows of his entire career. This wasn't just another concert. This was a victory lap. One that Fogerty earned after decades of fighting for the very songs he wrote. As the crowd roared, he stepped into the spotlight with his sons at his side, as if reclaiming his history right in front of thousands of people who had been waiting just as long as he had. From the moment Fogerty kicked things off with Bad Moon Rising, the energy inside the venue flipped from anticipation to pure electricity. That opening riff hit like a lightning bolt, and suddenly the entire room was singing along to a track released more than half a century ago. Without even pausing, he blasted straight into Up Around the Bend, then took the whole audience Green River, deep into his swamp rock universe. It was impossible not to feel the weight of the moment. This wasn't nostalgia. It was a rare kind of musical time travel, powered by the man who created these songs and finally had the freedom to perform them with full ownership and pride. As the set continued, Fogerty leaned hard into the Creedence Clearwater Revival classics that made him a rock giant. Born on the Bayou, gritty and hypnotic, echoed through the walls like an anthem pulled straight out of the late 60s. And then came Who'll Stop the Rain, backed by footage of Woodstock as the crowd swayed almost instinctively. These songs didn't just sound good. They felt lived in, sharpened by decades of distance, and finally reclaimed joy. Fogerty wasn't rushing through his hits. He was savoring them, pouring out a mixture of pride, relief, and gratitude that you could see written across his face every time the lights hit him. Fogerty also took time to revisit his solo career, sprinkling the set with tracks that reminded everyone he didn't just survive after CCR. He thrived. Rock and Roll Girls hit with a bright, rolling groove that felt like a burst of California sunshine. 110 in the Shade slowed the night down with a soft, introspective warmth. And Joy of My Life became a heartfelt tribute to his wife. In those quieter moments, you could feel how personal this concert was to him. He wasn't just playing songs. He was opening chapters of a life that had been marked by both musical triumph and heartbreaking battles behind the scenes. And speaking of battles, Fogerty didn't hold back from addressing the long, bitter fight over his own catalog. With a wry smile, he told the audience, "I had a plan, and the plan was, I outlived all those sons of," stopping just before the crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Everyone there knew exactly what he meant. For more than 50 years, he was cut off from the songs he wrote. No ownership, no say, nothing. Yet there he was, at 80 years old, finally standing on stage as the rightful owner of the iconic music he gave the world. That story alone could have carried the show, but the music made it unforgettable. The middle of the concert became a showcase of pure, unleashed musicianship. Fogerty and his sons, Shane and Tyler, blended their guitars into a family-powered wall of sound that felt both nostalgic and brand new. Looking Out My Back Door had the entire hall stomping along. And the rare Gollywogs track, Fight Fire, burst out with youthful energy, almost like Fogerty had stepped into a time machine. Then came the sci-fi twang of It Came Out of the Sky, which rolls into a blistering guitar solo, where Fogerty tapped, bent, and shredded with the kind of fire you'd expect from someone half his age. The solo itself was a standout moment. Fogerty alone under a spotlight, teasing harmonics, two-hand tapping, and even dropping nods to Eddie Van Halen's Eruption. The audience roared as he jumped between decades of guitar styles with ease, proving that his musicianship has stayed razor-sharp. The band then launched into Keep On Chugglin', driven by a hypnotic beat and heavy rhythms that turned the hall into a pulsing, swampy jam. Fans old and young were moving in sync. A reminder that Creedence songs aren't just classics. They're built to be played loud, live, and with attitude. When the main set began winding down, Fogerty delivered a run of songs that hit one emotional peak after another. Have you ever seen The Rain turned into a massive sing-along that filled every inch of the venue? Centerfield, performed in a hall attached to Fenway Park, suddenly felt more at home than ever. Then came Down on the Corner, The Old Man Down the Road, and finally, the explosive Fortunate Son. Even if his voice leaned more toward declaiming than singing by that point, the song's message landed like a hammer. The entire hall shook from the crowd chanting the chorus. As Fogerty left the stage, everyone knew he'd be back. But when he returned, he held up a flute of champagne and toasted the crowd, reminding everyone that this was not just an encore, it was a celebration. It was the last night of the Legacy Tour, and he was soaking in every second. The band ripped into Travelin' Band, a perfect, high-octane burst of pure rock and roll adrenaline. It was fast, loud, and loose. Exactly the kind of song that feels built for a late-night encore in a room full of people who never wanted the show to end. And then, of course, came the finale, Proud Mary. The opening chords alone were enough to make the audience erupt. Fogerty smiled as thousands of voices joined him, singing one of the most iconic American rock songs ever written. By the final note, there was no doubt about what this night meant, not just to the fans, but to Fogerty himself. After decades of setbacks, disputes, and lost rights, he stood triumphant at 80 years old, performing the songs that shaped generations. It wasn't just a concert, it was a statement, a celebration, and a reminder that true legacy can't be stolen forever. It always finds its way home.